Hello, I have to apologise to all my viewers in the USA for forgetting to wish you a happy Independence Day, but I hope you're having a great Independence Day weekend right now. That's the first thing. The second thing is I wanted to tell you that this video is going to be a bit different from the others because I'm not going to be talking about politics. I'm going to be talking about human history with horses, and that's for a specific reason. I try to read all the comments under my videos, of course. It's interesting, and you've always got interesting and informative things to say. I always appreciate your participation in the discussion, even if I disagree with you. It gives me a light into another view of the world. And one of those such comments, I've actually remarked on it before in another video, but I couldn't go into it in enough detail at the time. Whatever the video was, I was, I had another fish to fry. But one of these comments deserved a bit more elucidation, and so I'm talking about it now, even though it is, as I said, somewhat off my usual beaten track. The comment was from someone who was offended by my appeal for financial contributions to my channel. He said that he would never contribute to anyone who imprisons horses. And I'm going to be talking about the relationship between people and horses and why it's important. Because in my opinion, humans and horses have had a symbiotic relationship. It isn't one of imprisonment. And this symbiotic relationship has been going on for so long that there's been some sort of convergent evolution between us and the horse. And although we ignore that now, well, we've only been doing that for the past 70 or so years. Meanwhile, we have thousands of years of human history and development before that, which would have been impossible without the horse. And there's definitely something in our brains that still needs this connection. Frankly, I think that might be part of the reason why society is going so wrong now. I'm not just talking about horses, of course. I'm talking about connection with all wild animals. And if anyone here thinks that when I say horses are wild animals, if you think that's wrong, then you don't know enough about horses. I'm granniopteryx. I'd appreciate it if you'd click the like icon and if you'd share this video. Also, subscribe. A lot of you watch these videos without subscribing, but it would help my channel grow if you did subscribe, so I'd appreciate that. If you want to contribute financially, that's nice. Not if it hurts, though. But for those of you who do contribute, I can assure you that what I earn from this channel gets completely swallowed up in hay, mint imperials, and vet's bills. Right, back to the horses. See, I don't think enough attention is paid to the human need to have contact with wild nature. I mean really wild nature. And horses are just about the only contact we have with wild animals. So, as I said, horses are wild animals, and people who think they aren't wild don't know enough about them. Really. I mean, you can have a situation where the horse is doing what you're doing, what you want it to do, and then suddenly it turns into this flying monster. It's not predictable. That's a wild animal. And a lot of people don't appreciate that, which rather proves my point, doesn't it? So I'm going to talk about how humanity has been around horses for so long that I'm convinced that part of our brains have horses in them somewhere. Those Greek creatures, the centaurs, a combination of man and horse, they didn't just come out of nowhere, you know. Greeks knew that, obviously, they knew that people could ride horses, but they also realised that when you're riding a horse, you have developed a oneness with the animal, which is not appreciated by anyone who's never ridden a horse. And I'm not talking about, you know, donkey rides or, you know, those holiday things where you go on a pony ride with some pony that's had, you know, scores of riders and doesn't think much of any of them. I'm talking about when you have a horse and you develop a relationship. So I'm going to start about 100,000 years ago. That was when the horse population started declining all round the world. They actually went extinct in the Americas. Happy Independence Day, you guys. They went extinct in the Americas about 10,000 years ago. But even in the Eurasian continent, things weren't looking that good for them. The genetic record shows several genetic bottlenecks, which mean that, you know, the population just got very small at one point, and frequent incidences of reduced diversity. In fact, the population in Eurasia was on a downward drift right up until about 10,000 years ago. But even so, if you look, I haven't been scrolling through these pictures. This one here is, I think it's this one, this one, now I don't know which one it is now, but some of these, I think it might be this one, 25,000 years old. So, and by the way, in cave paintings, horses feature 3 times more than any other animal. It's like the people who lived in these caves, or at least who painted the walls of these caves, they were obsessed with horses. So perhaps this symbiotic relationship of horse and man preceded even any sort of domestication. I have often said, remarked to other people, they always laugh, that horses are like human beings with half the brain missing. There's something particularly human about a horse. Horses have a sense of humour, for instance. Now, dogs, for instance, they have a sense of fun. You can have a lot of fun with a dog. And dogs appear to smile sometimes when, you know, they've got their mouths half open and their tongues hanging out. They're having fun. Horses have a sense of jokes. They play jokes on each other and on human beings as well. But yeah, I don't expect you to believe that too much if you don't know much about horses. But anyway, around 5,000 years ago, we do know that horses were being farmed by a culture called the Botai. Not bow tie, Botai. And archaeologists have found horse bones and teeth and evidence of what looks like corrals in Botai settlements. The Botai were in a territory roughly around where Kazakhstan is now, and it appears they used horses for food. But their adaptation to an equiculture couldn't possibly have just popped into existence out of nowhere 5,000 years ago. There must have been some precedent. Possibly a precedent reaching back thousands of years. Remember, until then, people were moving around, so archaeologists wouldn't find things so easily. We used to think that civilization started with the Ubaid culture around 6,000 years ago. That they were the ones who preceded the Sumerians. So we know there's some sort of civilization in the sense of towns and villages about 6,000 years ago, and we thought that was as far back as civilization could go. And then we discovered Göbekli Tepe, didn't we? And realised that there were organised societies 5,000 years before that. And by the same token, it's likely that people were farming horses, at least in a small or sporadic way, long before the Botai people. But we haven't found evidence of them because they would have been more nomadic at a time when the world was a lot colder, and to survive, people would have had to follow the vegetation. Archaeologists say one of the most important aphorisms of archaeology is an absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And I reckon it's entirely possible that it was those earlier, as yet undiscovered horse herders that had something to do with the turnaround in horsey fortunes at about the 10,000 year ago mark, in Eurasia at least. Of course, in America, in the Americas, they died out altogether. Perhaps because the humans there just hunted them and made no attempt to protect a few during the harsh winters, the long harsh winters and freezing temperatures that suddenly hit the world about 12 to 10,000 years ago. Some of you will know what that time is called. It's called the Younger Dryas, isn't it? So, to return to that comment about imprisoning horses, it's entirely possible that if humans hadn't been imprisoning horses during the Younger Dryas, there wouldn't be any horses at all now, just as happened in the Americas. And horses were the beasts that helped human society spread all over the world. Just for your information, the reason that horses would be a useful source of food in a Eurasia subject to long freezing winters is that horses can take better care of themselves when it snows. Ruminants like sheep eat grass. They eat grass by pushing small obstacles and soil out of the way with their lips and mouths as they eat. That's fine, as long as the grass is exposed. But when it snows, the sheep then has to push the snow away with its soft muzzle. You may imagine that it doesn't take long for the muzzle to get frozen and raw, and it's been known for sheep to starve to death as they are standing over thick beds of grass, which are covered in a couple of inches of snow. They just can't deal with the snow. So if you keep sheep, you have to store something with which to feed them in winter time. Millet used to be a common solution, and even tree leaves. But it meant storing food, and if you're living a nomadic life, it's not impossible. You can dig storage pits and such like that you prepare and leave along your usual route from one food area to another. But it's by no means an easy job until you're settled down and can start building a granary. Horses, on the other hand, are quite different. They scrape snow away with their hoofs. So you can see the advantage of catching a few mares and hobbling them. You know, that's sort of loosely tying their front legs together to reduce their ability to wander too far, and then letting them forage their own food. You might wish to supplement it with a little bit of extra food that you've got stored for them, which would keep them coming back to you, of course. But most of the time they could feed themselves. And so the journey with horses, the human journey with horses, started certainly 5,000 years ago, and I'm pretty sure 5,000 years before that, one way or the other. And after that, as I've said, without horses, humans would not have been able to travel, to carry goods, to expand, and to make links with other distant cultures, something that would be essential for the exchange of ideas and the sort of inventions that come from such exchanges. Look, I'll just change the picture again now. That's got to be something more than 5,000 years. of a society that's depended on horses, that's been built around horses, and that's developed a relationship with horses. And of course, it can't have been a one-way development. Horses too have evolved from Equus ferus to Equus caballus under human care. And they cannot have failed to have converged with humans as humans have converged with them. And we did that in a way that's different from our relationship with other animals, dogs for instance. Now, however close and loving you can be with a dog, it will always be the love and the respect of two separate creatures for each other. Two separate creatures. When you have a relationship with a horse, though, it's a different thing altogether. The horse lends you his strength and speed in return for you lending the horse your brain. Yes, the horse actually does, in many cases, turn off its brain mostly and rely on you. A friend of mine once went to visit somebody who came to pick him up from the train station in a horse, in a carriage, I don't know, one horse and a carriage that carried two people and some luggage. And when this fellow, Mike, when he got to his destination, he went round to say thank you to the horse, petted, and he realised that under the what do you call, oh crikey, what do you call those things? The blinkers, that's right. The blinkers that stop horses from being startled by passing vehicles. Under the blinkers was a scarf. The horse was blindfolded. And Mike asked the owner, what's this? And the owner said, look, when he's blindfolded, he doesn't take fright at anything and he just relies on me for directions. And the horse was perfectly happy like that. That's obviously a bit extreme, but it's a true sign of how the horse will trust his guide. The rider or the driver will just turn off his brain and allow the driver to direct him. It might also be because the man and the horse trusted each other so very much. There are other instances where there are people who own blind horses and they ride them and they manage fine. There are obviously some situations where you can't take a blind horse, like very rocky or a bad terrain or anything. But yeah, it's done. And at best, the relationship of a human being and a horse is one of a real fusing of one living being with another. Of course, there are people who mistreat horses, for sure. Well, there are people who mistreat people. That doesn't mean we should abolish people, does it? Well, most people don't think that anyway, although I suppose there's a lunatic fringe that does. And what makes me think that there's been some sort of convergent evolution between humans and horses? Well, I don't think there's one horse owner in the world who hasn't had at least one moment of telepathic communication with a horse. I'm serious. And when it happens, it's a very strange and marvellous feeling indeed. And that's why that commenter was so wrong. Okay, that's it. Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.